Chapter 121, an important announcement. Please read. Reader Group 484893327. Please be gentle when you join. First, I want to apologize. Please don't scold me. I'm not abandoning the novel. Everything is fine with the story. Chidian is currently carrying out a crackdown on pornography and illegal publications to promote our country's fine traditions. The content of this novel is friendly, harmonious, and very patriotic. To cooperate with this effort and avoid any issues, I need to make a temporary adjustment to the update schedule. That's one reason. There's another reason. The update speed has been simply too fast. Among books released at the same time, mine is the only one approaching 300,000 words already, and my recommendation period hasn't even finished yet. I nearly collapsed. I talked with several veteran authors, and they all advised slowing down the updates. After thinking it over for a day, I decided to reduce the update frequency slightly. Don't worry, my daily writing speed remains the same. I'm just changing from 3 updates per day to 2 updates per day for now. All the extra chapters will be released when the novel goes official. Although I feel a bit embarrassed about this, it's for the long-term continuation and better performance of the novel, so I have to and will slow the update pace. If this makes you upset, join the group and scold me. It might make you feel better, but please be gentle. Rest assured, on the day of the official release, I will do a massive update of at least 10 chapters. For the current temporary schedule, updates will be at 8 p.m. and 12 p.m. After the official release, I will resume 3 chapters per day. I've also told readers in the group that if initial subscriptions exceed 1,000, we might even increase to 4 chapters per day after the official release. Please be confident in Jinmu's writing speed. Finally, thank you all for your support. Jinmu bows in gratitude. Chapter 122, Arbok. Half. He released Miltank, the team's main support, so she could give Murkrow and Slowpoke the best milk to restore their stamina. With the added high-grade energy blocks, they recovered quickly. All right, everyone rested? Let's go meet the local boss, Aoki said with a smile as he stood and brushed off his pants.
Ka! Yadun! Gekya!
Murkrow and Slowpoke were eager to fight. Ghastly was there for the spectacle. He knew he probably wouldn't be a match, but there was no harm in watching the action. Miltank, as usual, stayed calm. If nobody provoked her, she wouldn't attack first. Aoki didn't intend for her to fight, so she stood obediently at his side, content to watch her excited teammates. They headed straight for the mountaintop. Unlike the dense forest along the path, the summit's trees were sparse and few wild Pokémon were visible. On a large tree at the center of the peak, a purple form was coiled, lazily flicking its tongue in the sun, utterly at ease. Arbok. As Aoki and his Pokémon came into view, the snake slowly lifted its head, exposing the 2 large eye-like patterns on its hood. The frequency of its tongue flicking increased, and its narrow snake eyes gleamed with cold intent, occasionally flashing heat as it stared at Aoki. Arbok had been the overlord of this area for some time. Few foolish Pokémon dared to challenge it. Today, food had come to its doorstep. Before it had taken the throne here, it had spent time around humans and had learned one thing well. 2-legged creatures were tasty. This was a man-eating snake. When the chest pattern was fully revealed, Aoki's heart skipped a beat. Then he frowned. Intimidate, it didn't seem to faze Murkrow and the others much. While Intimidate might lower their attack a little, it did nothing to dampen their desire to fight. Arbok slid down the trunk, its purple scales scraping the ground with an unpleasant hiss. As it drew closer, its breathing grew audible. When they moved within the range of his chip scanner, Arbok's data popped up before Aoki. Pokémon Arbok, light green. Gender male, level 23 type poison. Ability Intimidate. Held item, neg moves, Poison Fang, Poison Tail, base moves, Crunch, Ice Fang, Thunder Fang, Fire Fang, Bind, Glare, Poison Sting, Bite, Glare, Screech, Sludge. Tutor moves, Gastro Acid, Wrap, none. Aoki's eyes brightened at the sight of a light green Arbok. He didn't intend to catch it. Its hungry gaze made it clear this snake had eaten humans before, likely more than once. Aoki had no desire to keep a ticking time bomb at his side. Besides, this Arbok carried a proud, kingly air. It had ruled the area for a long time, and catching it would be no easy task. Still, A wild Pokemon of that quality would definitely interest the Hunters Guild. It really is the local boss. Go Murkrow, Slowpoke. 2 against 1, no problem for them. In the wild, no one cared about fair one-on-one duels. Only league duels demanded equal strength. If you could beat an opponent outright without taking hits, why handicap yourself and risk getting injured? Survival favored strength and numbers. Tribes dominated resources for that reason. Arbok, used to challengers running or submitting, lunged at Murkrow and Slowpoke. Slowpoke's Psychic type gave it an advantage. Psychic was its specialty. Slowpoke, use Psychic. Murkrow, use Tailwind to boost, then Wing Attack, Aoki ordered. A wave of psychic pressure radiated from Slowpoke, bending the air. The invisible force struck Arbok's head. Cha! Arbok cried out as a sharp pain shot through its skull, halting its advance. Murkrow, powered by Tailwind, dove in next. Its wings glowed faintly white as it struck the snake's head with a fierce wing attack. Thump! The blow sent Arbok skidding backward 3 meters. The head of a snake is its toughest part. Murkrow had done real damage, but the hit snapped Arbok out of Slowpoke's daze. Its jaws gaped open, a foul stench issuing forth as several purple poison stingers shot out toward Murkrow. The instant its body landed, it sprang forward like a blade, its whole body following the stingers. Up close, Arbok's attacks were devastating. Once it wrapped its coils around prey, ordinary Pokemon rarely escaped. Murkrow, dodge and use Dark Pulse. Slowpoke, use Confusion to stop it, then Calm Mind. Slowpoke's Confusion struck first. Psychic moves are doubly effective against poison types, and the hit slowed Arbok again. Murkrow flapped, narrowly avoiding the poison stingers, then unleashed a surge of dark energy, Dark Pulse, filled with malice. Gah! Ghastly, you too! Use Nightshade, Aoki told an itchy-looking Ghastly at the side. Nightshade is a ghost-type move that deals fixed damage based on the user's level, useful in-game when there's a level gap. Ghastly laughed eagerly and joined the attack. Faced with this coordinated assault, Arbok finally realized its opponents were strong and well-synced. And that pink Pokemon kept using psychic moves, the kind it hated most, making it hard for Arbok to close in. Please collect. Please recommend. Thanks to the author who was like this for a 500 reward. Thanks to Meteorite Feather Fall for 100. Thanks to Cloud Rain Wind Shadow for 100. Thanks to Little Pajang for 100. Thanks to Jade Void Erlang True Monarch for 500. Thanks to Diving Little Oolong 00 for 100. Thanks to user 1610714030458 for 100. Thanks to user 2007081109015378 for 100. Thanks to user 2018061016307738 for 100. The storefront hasn't been visible recently, but I still thank all my readers for their rewards. Thank you all for your support. PY recommends Pokemon Early Login. Chapter 123, Capturing Arbok. Arbok realized that even if it fought to the death, it wouldn't be able to close the distance to the 2 Pokemon. Half of its moves would be useless, and its body was already wearing down. Escape had been an instinct since its weakest days. Now it turned and fled. Aoki's expression didn't change. He watched Arbok go and said coldly, Slowpoke, full power, one last psychic. Slowpoke finished meditating and its special attack rose. A bright blue light lit its eyes, and a psychic wave surged after the fleeing Arbok. Having already taken 2 rounds of attacks, a super effective psychic, an occasional Nightshade from Ghastly, Arbok was mentally and physically drained. The full-strength psychic hit it while it was slithering away. Its eyes rolled back, and it collapsed. Aoki casually pulled a standard red and white Pokeball from his ring and tossed it at Arbok. The ball opened on contact, swallowed the snake in a flash of red light, shook once, twice, and then the button glowed. Capture complete. Slowpoke used its psychic power to pull the Pokeball back to Aoki, who smiled and patted Slowpoke's head in approval. He released Arbok. Woken and frightened, it eyed Aoki, flanked by Slowpoke and Murkrow, and recoiled, aggravating its wounds with a hiss. I don't care what you're thinking, Aoki said flatly. Obey me and you'll live. Try anything, and you won't open your eyes again. Faced with Aoki's words and the threatening stances of Slowpoke and Murkrow, Arbok resigned itself and nodded. Better to live than not. Aoki sprayed a healing mist over its wounds, enough to stop it from dying, not enough to let it fully recover. He didn't fully trust the cunning snake. As long as it stayed alive until he could sell it, that was sufficient. He shoved the half-healed Arbok back into its Pokeball under the snake's resentful glare. Aoki was pleased with the battle. Slowpoke and Murkrow had excellent teamwork. With the super effective psychic advantage, Slowpoke dealt most of the damage and applied psychic control, while Murkrow, distracted, switched between close and long range and coordinated with Slowpoke's effects. Arbok wasn't weak or low level. Even taking its final evolution boost into account, it took 3 rounds of combined attacks to bring it down, and it only managed to use Poison Sting once. Still, its value was high, worth the trouble even without finding Nidoran. Ghastly, as usual, was the best at searching. Able to phase through objects, nothing hidden under the big tree escaped its notice. Beneath Arbok's lair, they found a pile of white bones exuding strong death energy. Ghastly feasted until the purple mist around it condensed. Between the 3 Pokémon, they scrounged up materials worth about 50,000 League credits, including some poison-type items Aoki planned to keep for Ghastly and Skorupi. Skorupi had been sleeping on Aoki's collar through the whole fight and woke none the worse for wear. Its ability to sleep deeply, even at its growth stage, amazed Aoki. After cleaning up the battlefield and packing the loot, they headed to the next location marked on the map. 3 hours later, they came up empty at the second of the 3 possible Nidoran sites the information broker had given them. Aside from ripping through a few weak wild Pokémon, nothing noteworthy happened. Not a single yellow potential Pokémon appeared. It was a wasted trip. They stopped midway to rest and have lunch. With plenty of time, Aoki didn't limit them to dry rations. His Pokémon enthusiastically caught wild rabbits and chickens, and the impromptu barbecue brought smiles all around. Miltank, trying Aoki's cooking for the first time and having recently increased her training regimen, ate more than everyone else put together. Aoki woke Skorupi after feeding it some milk. The little scorpion drank greedily, burped contentedly, and fell back asleep. Aoki was getting used to tending a newly hatched Pokémon. The morning's battles had paid off. Ghastly reached level 16, and Murkrow leveled up to 21, its first increase since leaving the training island. After leveling, Murkrow asked Aoki to add more weight to its training gear. Aoki agreed and upped Murkrow's weights to 25 pounds. Murkrow's request wasn't envy so much as determination. It felt it was falling behind Slowpoke and Ghastly. Slowpoke hadn't leveled this time, largely because bug types were common in the forest and gave it more opportunities. Murkrow knew Slowpoke would catch up soon. Ghastly's rapid progress also put pressure on it. As the self-styled Big Brother, Murkrow wanted to set an example, train harder, grow faster, and shoulder more responsibility for the team. Even if its companions eventually matched its strength, it wanted to have no regrets. At least it would have tried its best. Chapter 124, Discovering Nidoran. Please collect and recommend. 12. The third marked location on the map was the farthest from Goldenrod City, a lake ringed by a vast forest, the kind of place Nidoran might call home. Aoki had originally planned to check the 2 nearer spots first. If he could find and catch a Nidoran there, he could return to Goldenrod the same day, submit the mission to the Hunters Guild, and set out again. But if the first 2 searches failed, the third spot wouldn't allow a same-day round trip. In that case, he would camp out and then head north through a chain of forests toward Ecruteak City. He folded the map and slipped it into his ring, then set off toward the last location without hesitation. After all, he and Murkrow had already camped on Trial Island, where conditions had been far harsher. This would be easy by comparison. Still, for newly traveling trainers, or those only a year or 2 into their journeys, outdoor survival was a huge hurdle. Every year, countless inexperienced trainers died while camping. The Alliance didn't stop. They promoted the practice. There were always more recruits than care, and the Alliance saw this kind of trial as a way to filter the weak. Once a trainer reached intermediate rank, it meant they'd passed those tests. Simple outdoor survival could no longer stop them. Those trainers formed the backbone of the Alliance. Senior trainers were rarer and harder to come by, and their numbers were a measure of any organization's strength. 4 more hours passed. With a fully powered Murkrow and a Slowpoke at his side, Aoki finally reached the lake marked on the map. As they pushed deeper, signs of human activity disappeared, and they entered a Pokemon paradise. Wild Pokemon levels rose accordingly. By the time they neared the lake, the average level was around 20. The lake itself seemed to merge with the sky, spreading wider than the map had suggested. Circling it would likely take 2 hours. Pokemon activity wasn't limited to the immediate shoreline. So many Pokemon came here to drink that living close to the lake would invite constant disturbance. Most found shelters 2 or 3 kilometers away. That broadened the search area even more. And if luck wasn't on his side, he might have to continue searching the next day. Damn information brokers, Aoki muttered inwardly. With a place this big, anything could be here. The informant's marker had simply pointed to the lake, and while it narrowed down the search slightly, it didn't guarantee accuracy. He'd already scoured the first 2 locations, Arbok's hillside and another marked spot, without success. From before sunrise until now, as the sun dipped low, Murkrow and Slowpoke had gotten plenty of practice battling, but Aoki didn't look like he'd find a Nidoran today. He chose a scenic spot by the water and set up camp. The setting sun stained half the sky crimson and cast its glow across the lake like a blazing painting. Aoki took a tent from his ring and, with Slowpoke's psychic help, had it up in minutes. He arranged pebbles to make a simple stove, filled a kettle with lake water, dropped a few purification tablets in, and set it to boil. He kept the bottled purified water from Goldenrod for emergencies. When traveling in the wild, he preferred to treat local water rather than waste his reserves. The lake water looked clear, and with purification tablets and boiling, it would be safe. Natural water also had trace elements and minerals purified water lacked. As a human, Aoki's stomach wasn't as hardy as a Pokemon's. A bit of care now could prevent weakness, vomiting, dizziness, or worse. Boiling kills most pathogens, and with the tablets, it should be fine. He left some boiled water to cool and stored the rest in his ring for later. While he waited for the kettle, he sent Murkrow out to catch dinner. Each return brought back a few wild rabbits and pheasants. Slowpoke enjoyed a long swim, encountering Goldeen, Magikarp, and Poliwag that kept to themselves. During the swim, Slowpoke even used Psychic to nab a few fish, adding to their meal. Just as Aoki and Slowpoke were preparing the evening meal, Murkrow came flying in from a distance, squawking excitedly. It tumbled through the air in front of him, flapping and chirping, clearly trying to tell him something. Aoki and Murkrow had been together long enough to understand each other well. Their synergy was probably the best among all his Pokemon. He knew what Murkrow's excitement meant. "You found a Nidoran?" he asked. "Squawk!" Murkrow bobbed its head and flapped wildly. It had spotted the very Pokemon Aoki had been searching for all day. What had begun as a routine hunt for game had turned into a lucky break. Murkrow had found a Nidoran. Please add this to your collection and recommend it. Thanks to the following supporters: Kangjawenyo Tiuwe for a 1,500 donation, Wei Liangyue for 1,000, Chuanyuja for a 1,000, Pinsengye Ayong Piaoro for a 10, Yushu Erlang Zhenjun for 500, Suyo 2018-12 08-08 4905for 400, Sihai Qingtian for 400, Delif Tianshi Zhi for 200, Lai Meiyun Namal for 100, Shengyu Ai for 100, and Shuyo 2018-15 2016-4 for 100. Thank you all for your support. I can't access the site properly at the moment, so apologies if I missed anyone. I'll thank everyone once it's restored. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 125, Water and Electric Double-Team Slowpoke, who had noticed Murkrow's actions earlier, crawled out of the river. Miltank, who had been helping Auk with the food, set down what she was doing and obediently fell into line beside him. Auk looked up. The sun was already close to the horizon. If we move fast, we should be back before dark. Let's go. Murkrow, lead the way. Auk decided to search for the Nidoran. This time, everyone was deployed. To save time and find the Nidoran before sunset, even Miltank, who usually avoided fighting, joined them. She still couldn't fully overcome her hesitation. She could defeat opponents, but wouldn't kill them. Auk understood and didn't push her. Miltank's greatest role was the team's endurance, and Murkrow and Slowpoke would keep encouraging her to integrate more. Gradually, she moved toward the front. With her good physical defense and decent speed, plus the recovery she got from drinking milk, she became the team's physical shield, using her bulk to absorb unavoidable damage. Her thick fat only officially reduced fire and ice-type moves, but her size also made some physical hits less effective. 10 minutes later, they rushed through the forest and reached the spot where Murkrow had first seen the Nidoran. From Murkrow's description, relayed through Slowpoke's telepathy, Aoki learned that Murkrow had been watching a pheasant when it noticed another predator, a Nidoran, also stalking the bird. Murkrow hadn't interfered to avoid spooking the prey. At the site, they found a bloodstain on the ground and several small corrosive holes, clearly caused by poison-type attacks. It matched Murkrow's account. This was definitely Nidoran territory. Following faint trails and drag marks, they moved deeper into the Nidoran's range. The sky darkened. Half the sun had already slipped below the horizon. When the bloodstain faded from view, they stepped into a berry grove, trees heavy with fist-sized fruit in reds, whites, blues, purples, and greens. This had to be one of the forest's most popular feeding grounds. Leaves and fruit pits underfoot made a soft rustle. Aoki frowned. Nidoran looked like pinkish-purple rabbits with oversized ears. Those ears were extremely sensitive. Any sound from stepping on the ground would alert them instantly. No wonder the Nidoran lived here. Between the constant rustling and the need for attackers to be silent, this place gave them a huge advantage. Murkrow, watch for any signs of them nearby. Ghastly, you too. Aoki paused, then added, Miltank, go back into your Great Ball and rest for now. Slowpoke, use Psychic to lift our feet. Try not to make a sound. He recalled Miltank into her Great Ball. Murkrow and Ghastly nodded and spread out to search. Slowpoke concentrated, and a thin cushion of psychic energy rose under their feet so they wouldn't make noise. It also showed how much Slowpoke's control over Psychic had improved after their recent training. With Murkrow and Ghastly's mobility and the hidden lift underfoot, they should find the Nidoran quickly, if they were here at all. It didn't take long. Ghastly drifted out from behind a tree, excitement wreathed in its purple form. Aoki brightened. Found them?
Kaka!
Ghastly nodded eagerly and with a smoky purple hand pointed to a hole at the base of an enormous berry tree, one so wide it would take 4 people to wrap around its trunk. This must be it, Aoki thought. They stayed silent to avoid drawing attention. Slowpoke, use water gun to fill the burrow, Aoki whispered. Slowpoke opened its mouth and fired a thick jet of water as wide as an arm straight into the hole. With Ghastly confirming the location and them already blocking the entrance, there was no need to hesitate. When Murkrow returned, having come up empty on the surrounding search, he saw the water jet and immediately knew they'd found the den. Murkrow, use hidden power on that hole, Aoki ordered. Murkrow's hidden power was electric. Combined with the water filling the burrow, it could incapacitate most of the Nidoran before they had a chance to escape. Murkrow channeled energy through a practiced circulation, and a bright yellow orb formed on its chest. After much training, it could condense hidden power far faster than before, no longer needing minutes to charge. Now it took just seconds. The orb shrank and hardened, and Murkrow dove into the hole holding it. Bang! The yellow sphere detonated inside. Along with the chaotic burst of yellow energy, blue arcs of electricity followed the path of the water, filling the burrow. At the same moment, Slowpoke cut off its water gun. The hole was now a pocket of water laced with electric energy. 5 seconds after the hidden power detonated, a scattering of blue and purple figures exploded out of the burrow, covered in wet mud and crackling faintly with residual electricity. They tumbled out in a disheveled, sputtering mess. 1, 2, 3, 9 Pokemon in all, including Aoki's target, Nidoran. Chapter 126, All Caps Collect and Recommend. 12. Pokemon Nidoran Serre, Deep Yellow. Gender Male, Level 14. Type Poison, Ability, Hustle. Held Item, None. Egg Moves, Supersonic, Poison Tail. Base Moves, Leer Peck, Focus Energy, Double Kick, Poison Sting. Tutor Moves, Helping Hand. TM, HM, None. This was the Nidoranshi with the highest aptitude Aoki found after scanning them all. Among the 9 Pokemon, its level was relatively low. After taking Slowpoke's water gun and Murkrow's hidden power, it had barely escaped the cave and was nearly unable to fight. Its deep yellow aptitude already met the Hunter's Guild mission requirements. If he captured and submitted it, Aoki would complete the mission, earn a nice sum of money, and gain equivalent points. What surprised Aoki was that this Nidoran had Hustle. Hustle raises attack at the cost of accuracy, but its real potential doesn't show until evolution. When it becomes Nidoking, Hustle effectively becomes sheer force, turning it into a self-propelled cannon among Pokémon. If it ever got a life orb, even a deep yellow aptitude Nidoking could compete with green aptitude Pokémon. Still, Aoki had no intention of keeping it for himself. His excitement was purely at its market value. A Hustle Nidoran of green aptitude or higher might have tempted him, because sheer force Nidoking is terrifying. But for now, he had two bigger problems: the Nidorino and the Nidoqueen in front of him, roaring and glaring. There were 9 members of the Nidoran family here. The 2 Nidorino and the Nidoqueen were likely the parents. The 7 following them included 3 Nidoran and 4 Nidoran. Apart from the 2 parents, the youngsters were low-level and exhausted after escaping the cave. Aoki had already scanned the data into his chip. The Nidorino was yellow aptitude, level 22, and the Nidoqueen was light yellow aptitude, level 21. All the offspring clustered around yellow aptitude. This was a very talented brood. Capturing them all would net Aoki a substantial payout. Aoki smiled slightly and issued orders with calm confidence. Murkrow, wing attack the Nidoqueen. Slowpoke, psychic the Nidorino. They were only 2 powerful Nidoran, no real resistance expected. Murkrow folded its wings and dove at the blue Nidoqueen, while Slowpoke's eyes glowed deep blue and an invisible wave of psychic energy surged toward the Nidorino. Nido! The 2 parents tried to dodge, but they couldn't move fast enough. Murkrow's wings flashed with white light and slammed into the Nidoqueen, sending her skidding 3 meters backward. Slowpoke's psychic, aided by type advantage, dealt double damage to the Nidorino and left him writhing in pain. Murkrow attacked the Nidorino. Sucker Punch, Aoki called. Murkrow, after knocking Nidoqueen aside, turned into a black blur and sucker punched the stunned Nidorino. The Nidoqueen, seeing her mate being assaulted by 2 Pokémon, arched her back and fired Poison Sting from the spikes on her body, aiming at Murkrow as it prepared to strike again. Slowpoke, use Confusion to block the Poison Sting, then Psychic the Nidoqueen, Aoki said without haste. Slowpoke formed a mental barrier of confusion that intercepted Nidoqueen's Poison Sting. Trusting its companion, Murkrow struck the Nidorino with Sucker Punch as Slowpoke's Psychic slammed into the Nidoqueen. The Nidorino, close to Murkrow, managed a desperate Fury Swipes, his front claws glowing white, while the Nidoqueen couldn't retaliate because of the distance. Murkrow, protect, then finish with Hidden Power. Slowpoke, Psychic for the final blow, Aoki ordered. The Nidorino's Fury Swipes battered against Murkrow's Protect, hitting through 5 times before finally breaking the barrier. But Fury Swipes had exhausted its strikes, and the white glow on his claws vanished. At the instant the Protect ended, Murkrow released an electric-type hidden power it had been charging for 3 seconds. Already soaked from earlier water attacks, the Nidorino was particularly vulnerable to electric moves. He immediately lost the ability to battle and collapsed. Slowpoke's Psychic landed even faster and harder on the Nidoqueen. The Stab Psychic, combined with type effectiveness, left her unable to battle. Only Aoki saw Slowpoke level up after defeating Nidoqueen, rising to level 23. The experience had pushed it over the threshold. Seeing both parents down, the 7 youngsters, originally weak, surged forward in a chaotic attempt to attack. Ghastly, Hypnosis. Put them to sleep, Aoki said, glancing at Ghastly. Ghastly, several levels higher and far superior in aptitude, made Hypnosis extremely effective. One by one, the young Nidoran fell asleep. The deep yellow Nidoran resisted the longest, but even he eventually succumbed. Aoki casually tossed 9 ordinary Pokeballs. For Pokemon being submitted in exchange for League currency, special Pokeballs weren't necessary. Without suspense, every Pokeball sealed shut. The entire Nidoran family was captured. Worried they might die before he could turn them in, Aoki used potions on the still unconscious Nidorino and Nidoqueen. With that, the main objective of the outing was complete. The deep yellow Hustle Nidoran would let him submit the Hunter's Guild mission perfectly and raise his star rating. and the light green Arbok he'd found earlier made the trip even more profitable. "Slowpoke, teleport us back to the campsite," Aoki said with a satisfied smile. "Yadong," Slowpoke nodded. The teleport distance wasn't far. The previous fights hadn't drained much energy, and the level up had sharpened Slowpoke's psychic control. A ripple and slight distortion of space later, Aoki and his Pokémon vanished from the berry forest. That night at the lakeside campsite, Aoki and his Pokémon sat around the bonfire and enjoyed a hearty meal. "Please collect. Please recommend. Vote for me. If you want to criticize, please join the group. Jinmu has been abstaining from comments recently. Haha. Thank you to Jade Void Erlong Genjun for the 1,000 reward, to Lai Meiyun's Cat for 500, to Chansi Quile Shi for 100, and to Jaixing Boogie for 100. Thank you all for your support. And to the readers at the Book City, I haven't seen you recently, but thank you all for your continued support. Chapter 127, Post-Meal Exercise. After Aomori and the others returned to camp, the western sun finally gave up its last rays, and the fiery red in the sky faded away. The moon, which had risen early in the east, now showed its pale light over the land. Night settled over the forest outside Goldenrod City. With Miltank's help and lake water for washing, Aomori took his specially prepared cooking tools from his ring. He set the custom grill over the campfire and neatly arranged bottles and jars of seasonings beside it. He even had Slowpoke use Psychic to lift a stone and make a stool. Aomori laid out the wild rabbits and pheasants and organized them on the grill, pieces that needed slow cooking in the center, quick cooking, or easily burned pieces toward the edges. He worked the spices with skill, sprinkling cumin, salt, and pepper in careful proportions. Because this area was rarely visited, the wild meat was incredibly tender and juicy. After only a short time on the grill, it turned golden, and beads of fat fell into the fire with a steady sizzle. The smell of roasting meat spread through the campsite. Murkrow and Slowpoke were especially serious about eating. They'd hunted and gathered a lot of ingredients in the forest. What was on the grill was only a third of the haul. They stared, eyes shining, while everyone except Ghastly remained perfectly still, as if afraid the food would vanish if they moved. Miltank was the most earnest. Usually shy and timid, she became completely unrestrained at mealtimes, constantly swallowing in anticipation. Still, none of them dared to reach for the food unless Aomori gave permission. Ghastly was the most unfortunate. He could smell the roast and watch his companions eagerly waiting, and he wanted to taste it, but couldn't. Fortunately, after a day of nonstop battling, he'd absorbed so much death energy from defeated Pokémon that he felt sated. Consumed normally, that energy might keep him full for days, or for training, it could last a day. Since he couldn't eat, he kept his post. Lookout. Following the duty of a chef, Aomori first tasted the food himself. He took a clean small knife, sliced a piece of rabbit, and under the envious gazes of Murkrow and the others, put it in his mouth. A quick chew released rich juices, and the seasoning burst through, making the roast perfect. He nodded in satisfaction. After practicing for what felt like 2 lifetimes, his grilling skill had reached the peak an ordinary person could hope for. Seeing Miltank and Slowpoke still eyeing the food, Aomori laughed. "All right, everyone can start eating," he said, "but no snatching. Don't take more until you've finished what's in your mouth." He knew their appetites could finish the grill in an instant, and his cooking couldn't keep up, so he limited their speed. He picked up stray pieces from the grill occasionally and ate them himself. He was quickly full, but the Pokémon kept going. They ate serving after serving, and even the fish Slowpoke had caught earlier were slowly devoured. Miltank, true to form, ate almost half of it herself. The roast scent had also drawn attention. Pairs of red and green eyes watched from the trees and bushes. Aomori wasn't overly worried. Ghastly was watching closely, and no wild Pokémon could sneak up without being noticed. If they attacked head-on, the Pokémon who had just fought all day would be even less intimidated. In the wild, evasion can fail or make you a target. Sometimes surviving means showing your claws. After a day of battles, Aomori's team carried a faint metallic tang and a subtle murderous aura. Other Pokémon could sense that danger. Most kept their distance. Murkrow and the others, confident under Aomori's command, began to exude the presence of strong individuals. Still, With so many watching, one or two bold souls might risk it. As the last portion on the grill was nearly gone, a wild Ariados could no longer resist. It leapt down from a branch, using gravity and its silk threads like a red fireball, and snapped at Aomori with its two front claws, which hummed with faint purple light. It had singled out the person in the middle, sensing weakness and hoping to snatch the food. But its move had been seen. Ghastly warned Aomori in advance, and Murkrow and Slowpoke had their guard up. Aomori smiled, dropped the small knife, and said, "Looks like our post-meal exercise has arrived. Murkrow, wing attack. Slowpoke, use Psychic to restrain it." June 1st is the planned release date, so please subscribe. At least 10 chapters are expected to be released upon launch. Please collect. Chapter 128, Ariados. Please collect and recommend. By the time Ariados appeared, Aoki's chip had already finished scanning its data. The spider Pokemon was high level, level 27. Its aptitude was only light yellow, nothing exceptional, but its combat power still made it one of the strongest Pokemon in the area. Murkrow and Slowpoke, whose meal had been interrupted, were in a foul mood. Though they were already about 90% full, they were furious at Ariados for daring to intrude. They attacked without mercy. Murkrow shot up into the air and, charged with flying-type energy, dove straight for Ariados as it descended from the tree. Ariados tried to dodge by pulling the silk threads anchoring it to the branches, but it found itself frozen midair. Bang! Slowpoke had already used Psychic to seize control of Ariados' body, leaving it immobile and taking damage. Murkrow slammed into Ariados with a terrified expression. Ariados knew this dark-colored bird carried the type it hated most, but it was helpless. Slowpoke's Psychic hold wrapped around its body and made it even more uncomfortable. Before Ariados could finish descending, Murkrow's wing attack sent it flying even higher. Slowpoke, Psychic, Murkrow, Fury attack, finish it, Aoki commanded. At his order, Slowpoke's psychic power surged. An invisible force erupted from its body with fierce offensive strength and struck the helpless Ariados as it arcs through the air. Murkrow flapped hard to keep pace, its beak lashing repeatedly, imbued with flying energy. In under a minute, the level 27 Ariados, 5 or 6 levels higher than Murkrow and Slowpoke, was defeated. Its still warm body lay not far from the campsite. Ariados, a bug poison type, was doubly weak to flying and psychic attacks. Combined with Murkrow and Slowpoke's higher aptitudes and perfect coordination, its death was inevitable. The corpse served as a brutal lesson for the other nearby Pokemon who had been watching for an opportunity. When Murkrow returned to Aoki's side, most of the eyes peeking from the bushes and trees had already vanished. The few that remained glanced once at the cooling body and quietly slipped away. The forest resumed its normal sounds, the chirping of insects, leaves rustling in the wind. That Ariados, relatively strong for a wild Pokemon, had fallen without resistance proved the point. Those few imposing Pokemon truly had the power to back up their appearance. In the wild, strength is respected. Short-sighted challengers rarely risk another Pokemon's resources when a challenge could mean death. After Ariados, the early bird, had been made an example of, no other Pokemon came to bother Aoki and his companions. They slept well that night, though Aoki didn't fully let down his guard. Ghastly kept watch faithfully around the campsite, watching the surrounding creatures. Night was when a ghost type like Ghastly was most active. During the day, it hid in Aoki's shadow and devoted itself to preventing accidents so it could rest the rest of the time. Time passed like flowing water, and the sun rose again in the east. Aoki woke naturally, his biological clock, honed in his previous life and retrained during his time on Trial Island, had him rising around 6 in the morning. The air was damp from staying by the lake, and the forest's bird songs gradually awakened. The campfire had gone out overnight, but embers still glowed among the unburnt wood in the stone stove. There were signs of Pokemon activity, but none had approached the tent, so Ghastly neither drove them off nor woke Aoki. The Ariados corpse was gone, leaving only a hardened puddle of blood where it had been. When Aoki walked to the lakeshore, the Pokemon playing there scattered in an instant. Not a single one remained in the water near him. He smiled, shook his head, and began washing with lake water. As Aoki stirred, more Pokemon woke and made themselves known. He started preparing breakfast. He kept mornings light for the Pokemon, energy cubes, and Miltank's milk. Breakfast was simple. He took each Pokemon's bowl and filled it with the correct energy cubes. Miltank, who knew what to do, helped by pouring full glasses of milk and even filled a special bottle for the young Skorupi. Aoki woke the Skorupi on his shoulder and gave it milk through a straw. Skorupi had been sleeping heavily lately. If Aoki didn't actively wake it, it wouldn't stir. But it knew mealtime when Aoki called. After happily drinking Miltank's milk, Skorupi licked its lips, wagged its tiny tail, and snuggled back into Aoki's collar to sleep. Aoki was amused by Skorupi's sleepiness, but his chip scans still showed the little Pokemon's growth data. It might not be obvious externally, but the chip provided precise results. Skorupi was developing very well. Aoki believed that with Miltank's nutritious milk, once Skorupi moved beyond infancy and into a true growth phase, its accumulated physical foundation would let it grow quickly. By the time Skorupi finished eating, Murkrow and the others had also finished their breakfast. Chapter 129, Training and Traveling, Seeking Collection and Recommendation. After breakfast, Aoki assigned the morning training tasks. There's a reason morning is considered the best time of day. Training done then often yields the best results, a conclusion Aoki had reached over time. Since they were by the lake, Slowpoke skipped psychic practice for once. As a water type, Slowpoke's aquatic potential wasn't as strong as its psychic talent, but it still needed to be developed. Slowpoke entered the water to practice manipulating water-type energy. Murkrow's session was physical work. Its usual weighted vest was 20 caddies to keep it used to carrying weight without feeling overstressed. Today, Aoki increased the load. Murkrow's task was shuttle flights over the lake with a 40 caddy weight, about 1,000 meters per shuttle, 20 shuttles in total. Miltank wore a weighted vest and ran along the pebbled shore. The slippery, uneven stones trained her balance and control while building stamina. Having lived alone, Miltank had always been smaller than most of her kind. Whitney's Miltank, for example, was a full circle larger, but lately she'd thrown herself into training and was improving steadily. Ghastly had been on guard duty all night, so Aoki scheduled light work for him. A shadowed rest, while linking sleep and sleep talk, practicing control over the moves that could be used during sleep talk. Watching his team work hard, Aoki nodded, then took the Psychic Cultivation Manual out of his ring and resumed his own meditation based on new insights. It used to take him half an hour to reach a meditative state. After several tries and lessons from the manual, now it took only 10 minutes. The chip monitored everything, though, and each session was guided by its calculations. According to that data, becoming a basic psychic would take at least 31 years. Still, each meditation left his mind clearest and freshest, the feeling even more invigorating than waking from sleep. 2 hours later, with their training finished, Aoki led the Pokemon into the forest toward Akrutiak City, north of Goldenrod. By map, the route cut through 2 large forests and would take roughly 3 days on foot, slower than riding, but a good chance to raise levels. Since leaving Trial Island, his team's leveling had slowed, so the forest was a welcome opportunity. The woods were full of bug and poison-type Pokemon. Murkrow's flying moves and Slowpoke's psychic attacks would be very effective. Ghastly, as a ghost with a poison typing, could handle the common grass types. Overall, it was an ideal training ground. As the sun climbed, sleeping forest Pokemon stirred. Sunlight sifted through the canopy into scattered patches. Butterfree collected nectar, Lediba clung to trunks for sap, Rattata scavenged through leaf piles for seeds, and Spinarak wove webs in teams, waiting for prey, a peaceful little world. But that peace only covered the lower levels of the food chain. When aggressive Pokemon like Beedrill, Spearow, or Arbok appeared, calm shattered and chases erupted. Aoki avoided provoking encounters when possible, letting Murkrow and Slowpoke pass through without stirring trouble so they could move more quickly. If a wild Pokemon became aggressive, though, he didn't hesitate to retaliate. If Aoki spotted a Pokemon with notable potential or battle value, he'd have Murkrow and Slowpoke take the initiative, but he didn't automatically try to eliminate every foe. High-potential wild Pokemon were rare along this path. They also occasionally found valuable herbs or strange items, but those were often guarded by strong Pokemon. The chip scans helped decide when to fight and when to retreat. They wouldn't risk an unfavorable situation. By local standards, Aoki and his team ranked upper mid in strength, but that didn't mean they could act recklessly. There were forest overlords they had to avoid. If they met an ill-tempered, powerful specimen, the safest option was to run. That lesson came home when an Ursaring, level 35, began tracking them. Aoki had accidentally trodden into its territory and was chased for nearly 5 miles, dodging hyperbeam attacks as they fled. Ursaring wasn't especially agile, but it was strong and furious. Using tricky terrain and quick thinking, Aoki finally shook it off. During the escape, the quick-witted Murkrow had also snatched some Beedrill honey from the Ursaring's area, which explained why the gluttonous bear pursued them so relentlessly. For 3 full days, Aoki and his Pokémon traveled through the forests between Goldenrod City and Ecruteak City in the Johto region. The average levels of the wild Pokémon weren't high, but their numbers were overwhelming. It took them 3 days to get through the woods. That said, the forest still held plenty of high-level, high-potential Pokémon that defended territories fiercely. Any trespasser was met with attack. The Ursaring they'd run into was a typical example, straightforward and dangerous when enraged, but manageable. Other encounters were harder. Some Pokémon were powerful and almost as cunning as humans. If it weren't for Ghastly using Protect and Slowpoke teleporting them out of repeated sneak attacks, Aoki and his team might not have made it. The constant battles paid off. By the time they left the forest, every Pokémon on Aoki's team, except the recently hatched Skorupi, had improved noticeably. Ghastly, which had been level 16 when they entered, had fought the most and climbed to level 19. Murkrow and Slowpoke had already gained a level in earlier fights, and pressured by even stronger opponents and near-death situations, each leveled up again. Murkrow reached level 22 and Slowpoke level 24. Even Miltank, who disliked fighting, picked up a level by shielding the others and helping their stamina, now level 21. It felt like a full harvest. Aoki had also gathered many valuable materials from the forest, things he planned to sell on the black market for extra profit. After 3 days of travel, they reached the outskirts of Ecruteak City. 2 hours later, the city itself came into view. Aoki let out a breath and smiled wryly. "We made it," he said. Not as rough as Trial Island, but being chased like that was no picnic. Ecruteak City lay in northern Johto, near Mount Mortar and the Great Marsh. An ancient cultural city, it was known for its traditional Japanese architecture. The tallest building was the 10-story bell tower, rumored once to have been Ho-Oh's home. The burned tower in the city's northwest told another story, a tower said to have burned over 100 years ago, where Ho-Oh supposedly revived the 3 legendary beasts. Legends also said Lugia once dwelt atop that tower before moving to the Whirl Islands. The Ecruteak Dance Theater, built by the city's most influential family, drew crowds from across Johto and beyond. Its geisha performances ranked among the region's finest. And of course, the city had a Pokémon gym, the Ghost-type Ecruteak Gym, a place Aoki would have liked to challenge with Ghastly, if not for his current circumstances. By the time Aoki and Slowpoke entered the city, it was 6 in the evening. The long stint in the wild had left his clothes tattered and him smelling of the forest. Naturally, passers-by stared and whispered. Aoki barely noticed. Their judgment didn't matter to him. He wanted only to grow stronger and to be honest and open with Pokémon. Still, curiosity can draw a crowd. People gathered, forming a small ring as he walked. Fortunately, Johto's religious traditions kept the mood peaceful. Ecruteak was a religious center, and the community's reverence for the bell tower helped maintain order. Besides, the Pokeballs at Aoki's waist and the Slowpoke beside him marked him as a trainer, and his clothing, though rough, still suggested a league trainer rather than a vagrant, so their curiosity stayed civil. A young man in a police uniform, riding a motorcycle, and accompanied by a Growlithe, soon cut through the crowd. He dismounted, displayed his badge, and spoke politely but firmly. "Please show me your league ID. I need to verify your identity. If I'm being rude, forgive me. Unknown trainer." The officer's eyes were sharp. Growlithe at his side gave a confident bark. As an Ecruteak City cop, he had a good instinct. He'd noticed the wilderness aura about Aoki, the kind only a trainer capable of long solo survival would have. and was being courteous while doing his duty, a routine check to avoid trouble in the city. Aoki produced his league ID from his ring and handed it over. Here, check it quickly. I just got back from training and I need to rest. The officer examined the card, then ran a quick scan with a handheld device. After a moment, he nodded and returned the ID. Everything's in order. Welcome to Ecrutiek City. Try not to cause any disturbances. There are inns and bathhouses nearby if you want to clean up. As the crowd dispersed and life returned to normal on the street, Aoki relaxed. He led his team deeper into the city, already thinking of where they might rest and of the next step in his training. Chapter 131, Author's Note. This is really important. Please take a look. Reader Group 4804893327. Please be gentle with your criticism in the group. After more than a month, the book is finally going on sale. I'll put the important stuff first so nobody has to listen to me ramble. It goes live at midnight tomorrow, around 12:05 a.m. I hope everyone can give me an initial subscription. Even if you don't plan to keep reading on Chidion, please give an initial subscription there. This is crucial and affects the book's overall performance. Now the main points. On the day of release, there will be a minimum of 15 chapters released. After that day, the normal schedule will return to 3 chapters per day. If the initial subscription exceeds 1,000, I'll increase updates to 4 chapters per day. If it exceeds 2,000, I know that's unlikely, but my group members pressured me, I'll go to 5 chapters per day. And as a gag, Jinmu will wear women's clothing. I'm a straight man. This is being forced on me. Starting at 800 initial subscriptions, I'll add 1 extra chapter for every additional 100 subscriptions. About recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, and rewards on release day. 1,000 recommendation tickets add 1 chapter. 100 monthly tickets add 1 chapter. An alliance leader adds 5 chapters. And a 10,000 point reward adds 1 chapter. That 10,000 point reward applies long-term for the whole book. These are the rules for adding chapters on release day. There's one more fun perk. If the initial subscription exceeds 800, a big shot in the reader group has agreed to cosplay Daji in women's clothing. Everyone in the group can come see. Personally, based on a 15:1 collection to subscription ratio, I'd be very satisfied with 800 subscriptions. But who doesn't hope for more, right? Now for some grumbling. I honestly didn't expect the book to get this far. When I started writing, it was a sudden burst of inspiration, just a happy accident. As per tradition, I have to lay on the pity card a bit. I've been miserable lately. I've had a cold for 2 weeks that won't go away. I've been writing until 2 or 3 in the morning every night, and I still have to get up at 7:30 a.m. for work. It's exhausting. I only found out about the release suddenly. If things had gone as planned, we might have waited for Sanjiang, which could have been better for the book's performance. But I'm new and didn't understand the landscape. My update speed was too fast, and some books that were 2 slots ahead of mine didn't have as many words as mine. After talking it over with my editor, we decided to release. For a new author to get this far really couldn't have happened without your support. Thank you to my editor, Roy Dada, for all the recommendation opportunities. Thank you to my readers for tirelessly giving recommendation tickets, and thank you to the reader group for all the laughter and encouragement. New authors have a big weakness. We're emotionally fragile, and reviews can hit hard. Before I published, I had over 30 chapters saved up, but after reading a few reviews and chapter comments, I was really discouraged. Even though there weren't many negative comments, the criticism drained my motivation, and those 30-plus chapters nearly vanished in a few days. What got me writing again was Chidion blocking all book and chapter reviews. Can you believe it? After that, I started writing again. The chapters I'm releasing tomorrow are the ones I saved during that period. That's all part of the journey, and I'll get used to the criticism. If you want to offer critiques or discuss plot choices, please be gentle when you join the group. I know several big authors have releases on June 1st, and I'm a bit nervous. What if my initial subscription is very low? What if the collections are fake? When I dwell on criticisms, I lose confidence and get anxious. If you're one of the readers letting chapters pile up, Would you consider giving an initial subscription before you keep accumulating? A higher initial subscription will let me update faster, so you'll see more chapters sooner. In short, tomorrow is release day. Please support the book, lots. And finally, I'm asking for monthly tickets. As a new author, I've never received a monthly ticket before, so that would be really exciting. Thank you all. Aoki stayed calm as the young Alliance officer inspected his ID. The identity Shadow had given him was flawless. Not even Whitney's grandfather in Goldenrod City had been able to unmask him. The man before him looked like an ordinary Alliance cop, which made it even less likely anyone here would dig into Aoki's true background. The officer slid the card into a reader. With a soft beep, Aoki's Alliance identity data appeared on the device. After scanning it carefully from top to bottom, the officer handed the card back and said, "Everything checks out. Thank you for your cooperation." Aoki nodded, took the card, and walked away without a word. Once the police had confirmed his papers, the crowd around him thinned out. People began to treat him like a trainer returning from a long journey, respectful interest replacing curiosity. Aoki's slowpoke kept a half step behind him, and the officer watched the pair go with a thoughtful look. There was something odd about that man, the officer decided. He couldn't say what, just a feeling, like a dormant volcano. Aoki didn't dwell on it. He had no hidden agenda here. He'd passed the Alliance check, honestly enough. Still, habit made him run a quick chip scan on the Growlithe the officer had at his side. The chip returned tidy, enviable data. Growlithe, male, level 20, fire type, ability, flash fire, held item, collar, egg moves, crunch, double kick, fire spin. Basic moves, bite, roar, ember, leer, odor sleuth, helping hand, flame wheel, reversal. Tutor moves, iron tail, snore, TM/HM protect, hidden power, grass, double team, flamethrower. That was an impressive roster for what looked like a regular patrol Pokemon. Aoki felt a twinge of envy. With good aptitude and such a varied moveset, even at level 20 that Growlithe could be a tough match for his Murkrow. No wonder the Alliance police were so reliable. Behind many of them stood the Officer Jenny family. The Jennies controlled almost 70% of the Alliance's police force. Becoming an officer usually meant joining or serving under that household. Their power came from strength and tradition rather than born privilege. Aoki remembered, from his past life, facing a true Officer Jenny who commanded a city, their Pokemon had nearly forced him back. The Jenny family's reputation wasn't an accident. They were supposed to be strong. All of which only made him want one thing, a proper shower. Civilization made his skin feel sticky and grimy in a way the wild never had. Out there, survival came first and comfort was irrelevant, but now he wanted to be clean. He kept many outfits in his ring for different identities, but clothes alone couldn't fix the feel of having lived rough for days. He'd learned in his previous life that indulgence was fine only when backed by strength. He wouldn't fall into careless comfort this time, but a good wash was permissible. In Akrutiak City, he found a hotel that looked upscale enough and paid 3,000 Alliance coins for a luxury suite. The staff watched him with slightly averted eyes as he took the key. Ikrutik was one of Johto's cultural centers, and its famous dance theater and steady flow of tourists kept the hotels busy and well kept. Aoki nearly ran to the bathroom, stripped off his travel-worn clothes, and scrubbed himself until his skin tingled. He'd hardly noticed how much he needed it until the warm water and soap stripped away weeks of grime. When he emerged, wrapped in a towel, he felt like a new man. Even with the Alliance disguise still in place, he looked far more presentable, no longer someone who just crawled out of the wild. He called room service and had a cart of food sent up for himself and his Pokemon. After days of roasted meat and rough rations, the hotel fare tasted exceptional. The Pokemon ate eagerly. Drapion, who'd been dozing on Aoki's shoulder, woke up and drank 1.5 bottles of Miltank milk in short order. Its appetite had been growing. Its armor was getting noticeably shinier, and what had once been a rough, coarse exoskeleton now felt smooth and cool. Miltank milk might be nourishing, but it didn't cause the kind of premature development that ruins a young Pokemon's potential. Instead, it subtly improved physical fitness, especially stamina. Little by little, Drapion, Murkrow, and the others had become better able to withstand long, exhausting training sessions because every hard day was followed by a cup of restorative milk. It was the slow, cumulative effect of consistent care, and that made Aoki feel more secure than any lavish comfort ever could. Chapter 133: Ecruteak Black Market. After a pleasant dinner, Aoki skipped his evening training for once. He recalled his Pokémon into their Pokeballs and left the hotel. Finding a quiet corner, he quickly changed into a Team Rocket uniform, pulled a black robe over it, and fitted a realistic human face mask used by Pokémon hunters. Tonight, he was heading to the Hunter Guild to turn in his missions and sell the other Pokémon he'd caught. He expected to make a tidy sum. Night had fallen. Unlike Goldenrod City, the people of Ecruteak City were devout, peaceful if you wanted to be generous, lazy if you were blunt. Even though it was only 7 or 8 in the evening, the streets were nearly empty, perfect for someone in a black robe who didn't want to draw attention. Aoki slipped through alleys and used the darkness to find a secluded little shop in the southwest corner of the city. He knocked a rhythmic secret code on the door. With a soft click, it opened. This was Team Rocket's rendezvous in Ecruteak. Shadow had briefed him on the details before he left. Since Aoki was doing work for him, Shadow had provided this help, one of many small favors. Aoki slipped inside and the door shut behind him. The shop was simple and already closed. No one stood at the counter. The door had opened because of a mechanism programmed to respond to that particular knock. He wasn't surprised the place was empty. Though he hadn't spent long in Ecruteak in his previous life, he'd been on missions here several times and knew Team Rocket's hidden bases in the city. There were more than one. He knew of 3, but Shadow had only given him the code for this one. Aoki didn't loiter. He went to a back room and slid his Team Rocket ID into a slot stamped with the organization's emblem. Gears turned, belts hummed, and a secret door swung open. The space beyond was small and the floor bore strange patterns. When he stepped through, the door slammed shut behind him. By the faint light, he reinset his ID into another slot. With a familiar psychic ripple, the teleportation array sprang to life. In 3 seconds, he vanished from the room. When he opened his eyes again, he stood in a rocky cave. This was the black market serving Ecruteak City. Unlike the Goldenrod black market, which lay directly beneath the city, Ecruteak's had to be more discreet. Not for lack of technology, but because the League treated Ecruteak differently. Goldenrod was a chaotic metropolis where the League sometimes had to compromise with shadowy forces like Team Rocket and the Hunter Guild. Ecruteak, home to the Bell Tower and Burn Tower, was sacred in the League's eyes. Control there was strict, and underground groups were forced to yield. Team Rocket had little interest in fighting the League for Ecruteak's legends. They'd found other matters they considered more worthwhile, so they ceded this place. The League, meanwhile, tolerated a small black market outside the city, located in Mount Mortar, because it wasn't worth a full-scale confrontation. The market survived in a narrow, worked-out truce. Aoki stepped into the dimness of the cave and called Honchkrow from his Pokeball. Together they walked deeper. After a long passage, the cavern opened into a wider space, and lit by old hanging bulbs, a small metropolis within the mountain revealed itself, the Ecruteak Black Market. Its scale was far smaller than Goldenrod's. There were far fewer people. Most of them were wrapped in wide black robes, faces hidden. It wasn't just criminals here. Many were trainers with League credentials, and numerous established Ecruteak families ran stalls and shops. The League chose to look the other way. Ecruteak was the birthplace of Johto's religion, and many ancient families still held power. Allowing them a measure of leeway had been part of keeping the city stable. This market wasn't a pure Team Rocket operation. It had been built and maintained by Ecruteak's families. As a black market, it tolerated organizations like Team Rocket, but the shops themselves bore subtle family insignias, carved, painted, or stitched into awnings. The market was compact but well organized, with distinct areas for different trades. Following the signs, Aoki made his way to the Pokemon sales district. Stalls and small shops mixed together, vendors shouting and haggling, the clamor almost like a normal bazaar. The Hunter Guild's storefront stood apart, though. Iron cages flanked the entrance, and nobody manned a desk. Unlike Goldenrod's more hidden guild, this one wore no disguise. A large guild emblem hung above the doorway. People passed by constantly. Though their features were concealed, several wore golden stars pinned to their chests, the insignia of star hunters from the guild. Chapter 134. Submitting a mission, seeking for subscription. Some registered hunters in the Hunter Guild belonged to underground organizations like Team Rocket, while others might be alliance members. The guild doesn't care who its hunters are. It only cares whether they can capture Pokémon of real value. Because of that, some people make a living entirely from hunting. There are even small groups affiliated with the Hunter Guild that specialize in tracking and capturing Pokémon. They earn resources by hunting, train their captures, grow stronger, and then hunt tougher targets. A virtuous cycle that has bred a lot of pride among hunters. When they have no reason to hide from the Alliance's scrutiny, many wear their Hunter Star badge prominently on their chests. Aoki only gave the badges a quick glance and walked straight into the Hunter Guild building. It was much larger than the other shops on the street. Inside, the building was arranged around a completely hollow center. The layout split the hall into two distinct areas. One side was the Pokémon sales area, where buyers could inspect and purchase Pokémon. Half the hall was filled with iron cages of all sizes, each holding untamed Pokémon. The other side housed the guild offices, registration counters, mission acceptance terminals, and mission submission windows. If you wanted to exchange points for a Pokémon, you could just swipe your Hunter ID at the sales area. Aoki made for the mission submission counters. 5 windows were busy. A 6th sat empty beneath a sign that read, "Exclusive window for 5-star hunters and above." In the Pokémon world, status carries privileges, and the Hunter Guild was no exception. 5-star hunters and higher enjoyed perks, this exclusive window being just one. After all, a lot of the guild's revenue came from those top-tier hunters. Low and mid-star hunters like Aoki, or those with no stars at all, had to queue at the public windows and wait. Aoki joined the back of the line, crossed his arms, and watched the hall while he waited. The most peculiar figure leaned against a secluded corner, dressed flamboyantly, half asleep. Nobody nearby looked at him directly. A sun-shaped medal gleamed on his chest. He was a direct member of the Hunter Guild, the man in charge of the guild in Akrutiak City. As if sensing someone watching, the man's sleepy eyes opened a fraction. He scanned the hall, found nothing of interest, yawned, and leaned back against the wall, falling asleep again. Aoki felt a little incredulous at how comfortably the man could sleep standing up, but he didn't underestimate him. Anyone who could wear a sun medal had to be at least quasi-Elite 4 level. The way the man could sleep soundly while remaining subtly alert suggested hard-earned experience, someone used to resting even in harsh conditions. There wasn't much else to note. Most hunters in the hall were around 2-star. There were the occasional 4-star, but no one at 5-star, until a commotion broke out at the front of Aoki's line. "Congratulations on completing your mission. Based on your points, you'll be promoted to 5-star. You may go to the exclusive window next door to pick up your 5th gold star," announced a staff member at the submission counter with a practiced smile. The people behind Aoki erupted. "I can't believe I get to see a 5-star hunter today. 5-star? They must have 50 million points by now. What can't they get with that?" "Quiet. Didn't you see the symbol under their badge? That hammer mark is the Warhammer hunting group. That one's from Warhammer." Silence followed when the name was mentioned. The Warhammer hunting group might not be famous everywhere, but among hunters, they were legendary, ranked in the top 5 of guild-affiliated groups. Rumors said their leader had once captured a wild Pokémon on the level of an Elite 4 member. The details were vague, but the reputation stuck. The hunter who'd just been promoted straightened and walked to the exclusive window without looking back, as if the mention of his group had given him pride. When he left, the line moved faster. 10 minutes later, it was Aoki's turn. "Hello, please present your Hunter ID card," the receptionist said politely. Aoki handed over the card he'd prepared. She swiped it through her reader, and his Hunter data populated her screen. "Are you here to submit a mission?" she asked. "If the mission is complete, please place the Pokeball in the slot to the side." We'll evaluate completion based on the Pokemon's potential and other data. Aoki placed the Pokeball containing the Nidoran in the slot. The ball vanished into the machine. Pokemon transmission technology was that routine. And 3 minutes later, a data window appeared on the receptionist's monitor with the Nidoran's stats. Thank you for waiting. This Nidoran's level and potential are quite good. Our estimated value is 100,000 Alliance coins, she said with a professional smile. Aoki's brow tightened. If it had been a normal Nidoran, that valuation would be fair. But the one he'd caught had the hustle ability. Once it evolved into Nidoking, it would gain sheer force. Please have your data analyst recheck the file, Aoki said calmly. This Nidoran has the hustle ability. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please vote for monthly passes. Please vote for monthly passes. Chapter 135, Matching Missions for First Subscription, 315. When Aoki spoke, the receptionist blinked, then smiled and nodded. All right, please wait a moment. This time the wait was much shorter. The data had already been processed. It only needed final analysis. Hello, sorry to keep you. It was our oversight. This Nidoran has the hustle ability, so its value is doubled. That's 200,000 Alliance coins, 200,000 points. If that's okay, I'll record it on your ID card. Aoki nodded. A Nidoran with dark yellow potential and the hustle ability was worth as much as a light green to green potential Nidoran without hustle. The price was acceptable. After Aoki confirmed, the receptionist typed briefly and recorded his mission completion. Since your points have reached 100,000, you qualify to be promoted to 1-star hunter. Here's your medal. Please keep it safe. She produced a golden star engraved with 1 star from beneath the counter. The Hunter Guild's star medals were crafted so specially they couldn't be easily forged. No one could wear a star rank that didn't match them. If someone tried to counterfeit a hunter star and was caught by the guild, they'd be relentlessly pursued. That was why the guild's enforcers were nicknamed Sundogs. Aoki accepted the medal but didn't put it on. The receptionist noticed he hadn't left right away, but she didn't mind. She asked politely, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Aoki set a Pokeball on the counter. The receptionist recognized the move. Hunters often didn't hand in only the mission target. If they encountered Pokemon with excellent potential or rare traits, they'd capture them and bring them to the guild to match with existing missions. A matching mission meant you already had a Pokemon that met mission criteria, accepted the corresponding mission, and then submitted the Pokemon, thus completing the mission and earning points and Alliance coins. Just as the receptionist was about to speak, Aoki produced a second Pokeball, then a third, fourth, fifth, until she couldn't help the twitch in her eyes. He pulled out 10 Pokeballs in total, plus the one he'd handed in earlier, making 11. The guild's lowest missions required Pokemon of intermediate potential or higher. Only yellow potential or above could be listed as targets. So to match missions, you needed at least yellow potential. For Aoki to present 10 Pokemon at once meant he'd caught 10 with yellow potential or better. Among them was the light green Arbok he'd found on the mountaintop, the highest level Pokemon of the lot. 8 others were from the same family as the Nidoran. Good parental potential had produced multiple offspring at yellow potential or above. The last was a dark yellow Mankey he'd caught on the way to a Critique city. Decent moves and ability, so he'd kept it to exchange for points. Do all of these have intermediate potential? The minimum for guild missions is intermediate, the receptionist asked, a little hesitant. Tools to detect potential existed, but they weren't cheap. Most ordinary people couldn't afford them. Aoki had just become a 1-star hunter and didn't look like someone who could easily buy such equipment. So how had he pulled this off? That was the question behind her suspicion. Aoki smiled faintly and nodded. He had a chip that detected Pokemon potential. In his previous life, that tool had made him smooth sailing. He'd traded high-potential Pokemon for resources and used those to acquire rarer ones, a cycle that eventually brought him to near Elite 4 level. Having confirmed the potentials, the receptionist didn't press further, though the doubt in her eyes lingered. 10 intermediate or better Pokemon in one hand was still rare. She performed her duty. One by one, the Pokeballs were sent through the transmission device at the counter to the guild's back end. Because there were many Pokemon, the process took longer, and the people waiting behind Aomuki grew impatient. If all 10 could be matched to missions, fine. If not, those behind him were ready to make him feel the cost of wasting their time. 20 minutes later, the receptionist rubbed her eyes and stared at her monitor in disbelief. Datasheets for all the Pokemon had appeared. She looked again to make sure she wasn't reading it wrong, then swallowed. All the data's come up. All 10 meet the conditions. Do you want to match them with missions? Aomuki showed no expression. In his former life, desperate for money, he'd once spent a month in the forest and handed in 20 Pokemon at the guild. That earned him the nickname Hunter Joker. Whenever others mentioned him, they couldn't help but call him that lucky madman. Match them, he said calmly. Compared to his last life, his situation had improved a lot, and with the experience he carried, this money didn't trouble him. Later stage Pokemon training would be where real expenses lay. The receptionist nodded and began running the matching process. Based on each Pokemon's data, the mission list scrolled, and missions that fit the conditions were selected. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please vote for monthly tickets. Please vote for monthly tickets. Chapter 136, The 133rd 2-Star Hunter. Hello, all Pokemon have been processed. The total points you can receive are 900,000. Coupled with your previously completed missions, the total is 1,100,000 points, which exceeds the 1 million point threshold. You have been promoted to 2-Star Hunter. This is your medal. Please keep it safe. Through the service window, the receptionist handed Aoki a golden star engraved with 2-Star. Having learned from previous experience, Aoki double-checked the data for any unusual catches, like an energetic Nidoran, before accepting the settlement. Fortunately, this batch was ordinary, and the calculation went smoothly. The mission payout breakdown had been printed for him. The Arbok with light green potential fetched 400,000. The 8 members of the Nidoran family together brought in 400,000, and the Mankey acquired along the way was worth 100,000. Compared to open market prices, it was a little low, but it matched the Hunter Guild's acquisition rates. Selling them himself might have earned a higher return, but Aoki didn't have the time, and Pokemon turned in as mission submissions also converted directly into Alliance currency and guild points. With the mission completed, his Hunter ID showed an increase of 1,100,000 in both Alliance currency and Hunter Guild points. He didn't plan to spend them immediately. He still had 5 Pokemon under training and limited resources, so he preferred to invest in quality over quantity. Once his current team stabilized, he might consider buying a few guild Pokemon to form a second squad. Being promoted to 2-Star brought practical benefits. A 2-Star hunter could accept 3 concurrent missions and take on higher-level contracts with better rewards and tougher conditions. Aoki swiped his card and scrolled through the new list of 2-Star missions. Since he planned to head for Cianwood City, he prioritized targets likely to appear en route or in the area. 2-Star missions were fewer and more selective than 0-Star ones, so after weighing the options, he chose a Swinub capture and an Onyx hunt. Cianwood was small, more like a town than a city, and ringed by mountains, some perpetually iced over, so encounters with ice types like Swinub were common. As a rock type usually found in rocky terrain, Onyx was a sensible mountain prospect, and its size made it easier to spot. Leaving the Hunter Guild, Aoki still needed a few supplies for the next wilderness trip: healing sprays, basic Pokeballs, and some survival gear. After submitting his missions, his remaining balance showed 2,400,000. It would have been higher but for earlier expenditures. At a supply store, he restocked ordinary Pokeballs and bought wilderness essentials. The pack of regular balls cost only 10,000, a trivial sum for him. Then, he visited an information broker in Goldenrod's black market, buying locations where Onyx were likely to appear and asking about a meditation orb his chip had flagged as possibly accelerating psychic training. The broker knew nothing. These merchants traded in oddities as well as Pokemon intel, so the lack of leads made Aoki suspect the orb might not even exist. Using Team Rocket's teleportation array, he returned to the small, dim room where he'd changed earlier. With no one around, he switched back into his Alliance trainer uniform and donned his mask. By the time he left the small shop, the moon hung high, casting a pale haze over the empty streets. He walked to the small luxury hotel he'd booked. Although the town was quiet, the lobby lights were still on and the front desk friendly. Inside his room, he released all his Pokémon. Given the choice, he preferred to keep them out of their great balls when space allowed. The atmosphere was livelier, they built closer bonds, and teamwork improved. Great balls were roomy compared to ordinary Pokeballs, but being out was better for morale. It was a rare night without training. The past few days in the wild had been tense, always on edge for surprise attacks from wild Pokémon, and neither Aoki nor his team had slept well. Even with a ghastly that could alert them instantly, constant vigilance had taken its toll. Tonight he skipped drills and instead used massage techniques he'd learned in his previous life. He methodically worked through each Pokemon's muscles, easing tension and helping reduce the risk of hidden injuries from recent battles. While Aoki worked, a small stir broke the calm. Skorupi, who had been in a deep sleep, woke and blinked twice, then crawled down Aoki's arm and onto the other Pokemon. Worried it might get hurt, the Pokemon it landed on tensed and froze. Miltank, the only female in the group and the most maternal, knew just what to do. She carefully lifted the mischievous Skorupi from Slowpoke's back, produced a bottle of fresh milk, and nudged it to the little scorpion's mouth. Skorupi's eyes narrowed in contentment as it drank. Miltank's familiar milky scent put it completely at ease. Most of the others carried a hint of Aoki's scent, enough to reassure the little Pokemon that it was among friends. In that peaceful domestic scene, the night passed quietly, a rare hour of rest and warmth for Aoki and his team. Chapter 137, Arriving in Mahogany Town, 6:15. Early the next morning, while the town was still quiet, Aoki took his Slowpoke to the Ikrutik City bus station and bought the earliest ticket to Mahogany Town. Because Mahogany is remote and tucked into the mountains, buses from Ikrutik are infrequent. Fortunately, he'd asked the hotel staff about the first departure the night before. Otherwise, he might have had to wait another day. Using his Alliance ID, he reserved a seat near the back and boarded after the announcement. There weren't many passengers, it was early, and few people seemed eager to go up into those cold hills. Mahogany Town, also called Mahogany Village, sits in northern Johto and isn't well known, but Aoki knew it well. It housed a large Team Rocket base, second only to their headquarters, and had been Team Rocket's biggest stronghold in Johto. In his previous life, he'd spent 3 years at that base right after leaving Trial Island. He only truly escaped its control after he proved able to handle high-difficulty missions on his own. Watching the scenery slip by the window, familiar memories crept up on him. The bus had been on the road for 3 hours and was now approaching Mahogany's outskirts. He wouldn't be at the town station much longer. "I never thought I'd come back here," he said softly, a hint of melancholy in his voice. Only he knew what those 3 years at the Mahogany base had really been like. People called Trial Island a purgatory, but for him the 3 years after leaving Trial Island, stuck inside that base, were the memories he least wanted to revisit. Team Rocket's hierarchy was brutal. His performance after Trial Island had been mediocre, his talent unimpressive, and he'd started as a grunt, enduring ridicule and discrimination. The grunts had already formed cliques when he arrived. Without any inside backing, his superiors often picked on him. He didn't know how to curry favor, couldn't play social games, and was further ostracized. Those years were hard. Returning now, in a new life and with a different standing, his view had changed. He'd reached quasi-Elite 4 level, and many petty things no longer bothered him. On a larger scale, he was working under Shadow, vice captain of Team Rocket's Shadow unit, and an Elite 4 caliber trainer. Few in the base would dare openly disrespect him. On a smaller scale, he was no longer the inexperienced youth he once was. With the combat power of his current Pokemon, he could easily defeat his past self. Ordinary grunts were no match for him now. The bus stopped at Mahogany Town's station. Stepping out, Aoki felt the cold strike him, much sharper than at Krutiak, and noticed how quiet the streets were. People moved about briskly and kept to themselves. There was little warmth between them. Team Rocket's influence was plainly felt. Shadow had tasked Aoki with going to the Lake of Rage north of Mahogany to a secret Team Rocket research base, using a code to find someone and retrieve something. But he wasn't in a rush. He also needed to head to the icy peaks east of town to search for Swinub and Onyx for a hunter's contract. Aoki pulled his baseball cap down, kept his head low, and slipped into the Pokemon Center. Despite being Team Rocket's largest Johto base, the Alliance's presence in Mahogany was strong too. The fact that Price, a powerful and stern gym leader, was stationed here said as much. Price's strength and strictness made him more than capable of challenging even an Elite Four, and the Alliance kept him here to keep tabs on Team Rocket and curb their excesses. For that reason, Aoki didn't flaunt any Team Rocket affiliation. The Alliance was still the official authority in Johto. He entered using his Alliance ID, went to the public video phone area, took out his communicator, and dialed a familiar number. Soon a cheerful face filled the screen. Whitney from Goldenrod, hair in pink pigtails. "Aoki, what have you been doing? I left you messages for days and you didn't answer." Whitney feigned indignation. Aoki felt a small headache creep up. "All right, I'm not teasing. The thing is, the Miltank at home have almost finished the Pokeblocks you made. If you have time, could you make some more?" Her expression softened and she grew sincere. He had thought he'd overestimated the Miltank's appetite, but apparently they'd gone through the supply faster than he expected. "I don't have much time. I only made a little earlier. I'll send it to you now," he said after a moment's thought. The coming days would be busy, and he wasn't sure he'd have another chance to make more Pokeblocks. "Oh, okay then. Thanks a lot. I'll have Uncle Lyra transfer the money to you later," Whitney said casually. She knew he was busy, otherwise he wouldn't have called back after ignoring her messages. They didn't talk long. Whitney did most of the talking anyway, and Aoki's replies were brief. After hanging up, he felt a small, inexplicable relief. The Pokemon Center had a device that could transmit items as well as Pokemon. Aoki sent the pre-packaged Pokeblocks to the coordinates Whitney had given him. Not long after he left the center, his communicator pinged with a message: "Item received. Money transferred." No need to guess who had sent it. If Whitney herself had been replying, the tone would have been different. Fifth update. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please vote for monthly passes. Please recommend. Chapter 138. Come and get it. It was just past noon. After lunch at the Pokemon Center, Aoki set off along Route 44, the only road east of Mahogany Town. To the east, a towering mountain rose into the clouds. Its peak was lost in mist, and everything above the middle slopes was white with snow. That was his destination, a range of interconnected caves, cold and icy, a paradise for ice-type Pokemon. He hoped to find Swinub there. If he happened upon an Onyx, that would be fate. Before he could reach the snowy slopes, though, there was a large forest to cross. From a distance, the mountain looked close, but after an hour's walk, it still seemed as far away as ever. He was on the forest's edge now. People were thinning out, but he still ran into the occasional passerby. Compared to the woods outside Goldenrod City, Mahogany's forest showed a lot more human activity, largely because Mahogany was home to one of Team Rocket's biggest bases in Johto. The surrounding trees had become a free training ground for their members. Aoki's league uniform was ordinary enough, but in this place it drew attention. A few Team Rocket members who passed by, not all in uniform, shot him unfriendly looks. Non-Rocket trainers also gave him a wide berth once they noticed his outfit. That Mahogany Town was a major Rocket base wasn't exactly a secret among trainers. Rocket didn't wipe out every outsider here, but they made it clear who ran the area. As long as you didn't provoke them and kept your identity low-key, they usually left you alone. Aoki had simply forgotten to change. He hadn't been back to Mahogany in a long time. Only after he left town and noticed the looks did he remember. In his previous life, when he'd been a Team Rocket grunt in Mahogany, these things hadn't mattered. Now, wearing the badge of the League, he was slow to adapt. Since he'd already attracted attention, he decided to show a little strength and discourage trouble. "Slowpoke, come out," he called. People who had been watching him stepped back. Any trainer who survived in the wild could read Pokemon a little. Aoki's Slowpoke had an unusual presence. Even at a glance, it was clear it wasn't ordinary. Those who might have been tempted to cause trouble thought twice. The crowd's wary stares lessened, and Aoki picked up his pace into the trees. Still, one or two pair of eyes lingered. After 2 more hours of walking, the forest thinned and wild Pokémon grew more numerous. Human presence dropped off entirely. Aoki stopped and spoke coolly. "Come out." Seconds passed without a sound. He snorted. "No need to hide. When did Team Rocket get so timid?" 2 figures stepped out from behind a tree. One was tall, about 1.8 meters, wearing a gray jacket. The other looked ordinary in a black jacket. Both fixed Aoki with looks that mixed surprise and mockery. "Kid, how'd you find us?" the taller one asked, voice sharp. Aoki said nothing, only smiled coldly. He'd seen worse attempts at tracking and disguise in his previous life. The smaller man's eagerness told the rest of the story. "Kevin, don't waste time. He probably just got lucky. Let's finish this quick. We've got to report back," the ordinary one said, arrogance clear in his tone. Kevin, the taller man, studied Aoki with narrowed eyes. The stranger gave him a certain unease, something Kevin couldn't place. "Don't be hasty," Kevin warned the other. "If someone else shows up, they'll take it from us." The impatient man snorted. "Kevin, enough talk. If he's alone, we take it now." Kevin raised a hand to stop him. After a tense moment, he spoke slowly. "That's a good slowpoke you've got. Hand it over, and we'll let you go." The ordinary man started to speak, but Kevin cut him off with a harsh, "Shut up." The other flinched. Beneath his fear, a feral ruthlessness showed. Both of them had come for the same thing. The shiny slowpoke's obvious rarity had drawn them. Under their gazes, Aoki hesitated a heartbeat, then reached to his belt and slowly took a Pokeball out. Their faces lit up. They hadn't expected him to hand over such a prize so readily. Kevin's expression hardened. He'd been wary of this league trainer, a pampered league kid, yet somehow dangerous. And still he had a plan. One person's prize was better than 2 people sharing. The man behind him, greedy and restless, shifted his weight and, while pretending to obey, reached with his right hand toward his own belt, fingers brushing the Pokeball at his hip, ready to grab the moment it was offered. What neither of them expected was that Aoki didn't withdraw his Slowpoke's Pokeball to give to them. He didn't hand the Pokemon over at all. Instead, he let the ball sit in his palm, a slow grin spreading across his face. "The item's here," he said, voice even. "Come and get it." Chapter 139, 1 against 2, 15. Chapter 139, 1 against 2, 15. When Aomuki's taunt hit them, both Team Rocket grunts flushed with anger and humiliation. Almost at the same instant, they drew 2 Pokeballs each. "Ghastly, hypnosis," one of them barked. But Aomuki was already ready. Ghastly slipped out of the dappled shadows of the trees and materialized in front of the 2 Rocket members, aiming straight for hypnosis. Team Rocket, however, weren't like the timid league trainers who froze in a fight. Even their grunts had fast emergency responses. Both of the boys reflexively shut their eyes and threw out Pokeballs. 2 coughing, an Arbok, and a Golbat appeared, standard Team Rocket fare. Ghastly's initial hypnosis attempt was interrupted by the sudden arrival of the 4 Pokemon. Aomuki didn't panic. He called the ghost back and gave calm, precise orders. "Come back, Ghastly. Confuse Ray on Golbat. Slowpoke, Meditate. Murkrow, Tailwind, then Hidden Power on Golbat. Miltank, Defense Curl." Each Pokemon obeyed without hesitation. Ghastly slipped back into the shadows and sent a small flickering orb of strange light toward Golbat. Confuse Ray. Slowpoke closed its eyes and dropped into meditation, something Aomuki had drilled into it so it could center itself under pressure. Murkrow cried out. A current of wind gathered around its wings as it set up Tailwind. Miltank stepped forward and curled into a defensive posture. Aomuki took a quick mental inventory of the opposition. The 2 coughing were nearly identical, around level 21, one slightly higher in aptitude than the other. Golbat was level 24 with strong aptitude. It was clearly Kevin's ace. Arbok, about level 22 with decent aptitude, had likely just evolved. The 2 Team Rocket boys only opened their eyes after Ghastly withdrew. Their faces hardened. They'd expected an inexperienced league trainer, not this, but their reaction had been a fraction slow. That was all it took. Ghastly's Confuse Ray struck Golbat dead on. Golbat's senses blurred. Strange lights filled its vision. It couldn't focus. The big bat began to fly erratically, disoriented. "Golbat, move! Coughing sludge!" Kevin snarled. Golbat, close your eyes and listen. Use supersonic, he added, trying to snap it back. The other rocket grabbed at commands of his own. Coughing, Sludge 2, Arbok, get close and bite Slowpoke. They weren't cooperating perfectly, but when faced with a strong opponent, they knew cooperation was the safest bet. Still, confusion spread unevenly. Golbat was affected most, but some of the disorder rippled through their team. One kid, clearly frustrated with Kevin's leadership, ignored Kevin's second thoughts and pressed on. If Arbok could reach Slowpoke, even if Slowpoke's defense dropped, a Dark-type move would hit hard. Aoki wasn't going to let them have their way. Miltank, block, stop Arbok. Murkrow, blow the sludge away. Slowpoke, full power. Psybeam, continuous. Ghastly, hypnosis the two coughing. He issued the orders crisply. Miltank planted its hooves, spread its bulk, and stepped into Arbok's path. Arbok tried to slither around, but found the massive Miltank immovable and was stunned for a moment. Murkrow swept its wings, scattering the coughing sludge with gusts so the muck couldn't hinder the battle. Slowpoke, fresh from meditation, felt its psychic energy surge. It unleashed a steady stream of Psybeam at the dazed Golbat. The two coughing couldn't stray far from their trainers. Both boys were worried about a Ghastly sneak attack, so their offensive options were limited. Ghastly circled and, having found a moment, sent Hypnosis to interfere with the coughing's focus. The plan was coming together. Arbok, deal with Miltank. Wrap, then Fire Fang, one of the rockets snapped, trying to force a breakthrough. Coughing, smokescreen, Kevin barked, hoping to obscure everyone's view and give his Golbat time to recover. Golbat was his ace. He couldn't afford to lose it. Aoki anticipated it. Murkrow, gust, Miltank, hold on. Murkrow's gusts blew away the forming smokescreen before it coalesced, keeping Slowpoke's line of sight clear. Miltank braced and took the coil. When Arbok tried to wrap, Miltank didn't back down and let itself be bound so the team could buy time. The situation snapped in an instant. Slowpoke, charged with psychic focus, pounded Golbat with unrelenting Psybeams. Golbat, still confused and battered, couldn't steady itself. With a final flicker, it fell from the sky and crashed to the ground, out cold. Golbat, Kevin shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. The tide of the fight had turned unmistakably. 8th update. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please vote for monthly passes. Please recommend. Please collect. Asking for everything. Chapter 1 for Miltank's other side. Seeking first scription. Seeing his ace lose its fighting ability first, Kevin froze. Golbat had been his trump card. Its aptitude was excellent. It had thrived among Team Rocket grunts, and people often catered to him. Whenever he went on a mission, Golbat's flying ability and solid combat power were his advantage. He hadn't expected that, in this battle, before it had even really begun, Golbat would be hit by a confused ray from Ghastly and be rendered useless. Damn it, why aren't you telling your Arbok to deal with that Slowpoke? If that Psychic-type Slowpoke gets to unleash itself fully, we're finished! Kevin barked at the other Team Rocket trainee, his face twisted in anger. Shut up, trash! Can't you see my Arbok's occupied? The other youth snapped back, shedding the timid demeanor he'd shown before. With Kevin's most feared Pokémon out of commission, the other trainer no longer felt any obligation to defer to him. He had already decided that once he handled this annoying league trainer, he'd keep the spoils to himself. As for Kevin, the big brother who'd bossed him around, he could go join the league trainer, for all he cared. His expression darkened, and he growled, Arbok, Ice Fang! Kevin, stunned that his usually obedient subordinate would shout at him like that, went red and then pale, but he didn't argue. With Golbat out, victory depended on the other trainer now, and Kevin dared not risk losing that edge. At the same time, he swore that once he got back safely, he'd make him pay. Aoki watched their exchange and sneered inwardly. Two people filled with suspicion couldn't be expected to cooperate perfectly. He'd overestimated them. This shouldn't have been so difficult. 4 Pokémon versus 4 Pokémon. Aoki's team had a slight aptitude edge, but the other side's Pokémon were slightly higher level. If the two trainers had trusted each other even a little, leaving one coughing to guard against Ghastly, using the other to stall Miltank, and sending Arbok straight at Slowpoke, the battle would have been tight but winnable. Even if Golbat had been confused, it would recover after a while, and Murkrow alone couldn't beat it during that time. Their mutual distrust had cost them. Aoki, Miltank, keep using Defense Curl. Slowpoke, target Arbok with Psychic. Murkrow, sucker punch that coughing. Aoki ordered, his eyes on the coughing opposite him. Miltank curled up and boosted its defense again. Arbok's Ice Fang was powerful, but Miltank's thick fat ability halved the damage from Ice and Fire-type moves, and with 2 boosts from Defense Curl, it shrugged off the hit. Slowpoke became the main damage dealer. At Aoki's command, it shifted its psychic attacks onto Arbok, wearing it down and leaving it disoriented. Murkrow engaged Kevin's coughing. Neither side could finish the other off quickly, but Murkrow was holding its own. Kevin ground his teeth and watched in growing alarm. Everything had gone off script. Now he had to worry not only about the league trainer's Pokémon, but also about his apparently rebellious teammate. Retreat crossed his mind. The situation wasn't right. Even if they beat the league trainer, he might be betrayed by his own ally. He reached for the Pokeball at his waist, ready to recall Golbat. Coughing would have to be the sacrificial rear guard. Someone had to stay behind to cover a retreat. But the other Team Rocket trainee had noticed Kevin's movement and wouldn't let him go easily. If Kevin turned tail now, the other would likely refuse to help him later. At the same time, the other trainer believed he could still retreat if he needed to. He just abandoned coughing. Both trainers treated their coughings as expendable. Aoki didn't know their thoughts, and even if he did, he wouldn't have cared. Then the field changed again. Miltank had reached its limit. Veins bulging on its forehead, the usually shy and gentle cow displayed an anger no one had seen before. Where others expected timidity, Miltank exploded. It forced Arbok's jaws open, seized its neck, and dragged it off. Arbok was pure muscle, at least on par with Miltank in size, but Miltank didn't stop there. It stomped down hard on Arbok's head, seized the tail, and began to lash it like a whip. Arbok became the whip. Smack, smack, smack. Under the furious barrage, Arbok met the ground again and again. Already weakened from Slowpoke's psychics, Arbok's fighting spirit was extinguished by Miltank's onslaught. Had Miltank not stopped when it did, Aoki thought for a moment that she might have killed it. A hush fell over the battlefield. Slowpoke and Murkrow, accustomed to the Miltank they knew, paused as if seeing her anew, stunned into inaction. When she finally eased up, Miltank seemed to realize she'd overdone it. Noticing the stunned faces around her, she lowered her head shyly, a blush rising on her cheeks. From the corner of the arena came a swallowed gasp. Arbok's trainer. He'd never imagined the round, soft-looking Miltank could erupt into such terrifying fury. With that, both Kevin's ace Pokémon, Golbat and Arbok, were out of the fight. Kevin reacted first. His face flushed scarlet. He recalled Golbat, and then he ran without looking back. Damn it! The other Team Rocket youth cursed through clenched teeth. Golbat had been close enough to call back, but Arbok lay too far away. If he ran now, he'd have to abandon Arbok, and even if he later tried to come back, his place in Team Rocket would be gone. But with his life on the line, he couldn't hesitate. He cast one last look at the fallen Arbok, then turned and fled. 9th update. Please subscribe. Please vote for monthly tickets. Please collect and recommend. Begging for everything.